Hey, I'm John Unden. This is a video tutorial of how to do basic scripting. If you've never done any scripting before, I'm going to walk you through stuff I wish I would have known on my first day. So I'm running in VBS4 version 24.1. Since we're all starting at different levels here, the most important thing I wish I had learned on day one was how to filter for things in the dev console and what is the coding workflow in VBS. My workflow is you have this dev console that you can reach by tools. Make sure I'm actually recording. Yeah. And remove some of this stuff because it has nothing to do with what I'm doing here. So your dev console is this box allows you to execute commands, and these are query fields down here. So you can type in a query and it will give you an answer. And you can do up to 4 of them. We won't cover all this track variable. That's if you want to keep an eye on a variable as you're actually playing the game. But for right now, let's just go ahead and close this. And all right, from the map screen or from this screen, you can hit the letter H as in hotel, or you can just click preview. So either way, they do the same thing. And that loads you in. I'm going to hit M as in map a couple times, so it'll bring me to this screen. Now we are in the RTE, the real-time editor. All right, so in the RTE is where you want to be working. If you do this in the OME, where it says OME with the red dot, you're not going to have the same effects. This is real time, and we're actually running the code. This is actually the mission. I could run around and go harass my troops or whatnot. All right, so let me go ahead and get in position where I ought to be. All right, and what I want to do is just select these guys that are in front of me and have them face me. We're going to have them do a right face. That's kind of cool. We're going to do drill and ceremonies with VBS4. All right, so we're going to go into our dev console. And the first thing I want to do is understand what I'm working with. By the way, the workflow I talked about is using the dev console. Figure out your scripts you want to use. You get them working in the real-time editor. And once you've got your scripts working, then we'll go ahead and we'll put them into an actual script file, so you don't have to keep using the dev console. All right, so let's figure out who these guys are. What's important to know what type of thing we're working with. So if we click on one of these guys, we can see down here he has this big long name. Let's copy that. We're going to do a query. This is R1-3. I'm looking at these guys' names here. R1-3, R1-1, R1. All right, so remember I copied and pasted these guys. Every time you copy and paste, so it's R1, it made an R1-1, it made an R1-2, right, and an R1-3. I don't necessarily like that. I'm going to go ahead and change this to R2. Not the robot, but the man. We'll make this R3. Well, it's just a personal preference. It's easier to keep up with. The 4 guys, R1 through 4. So, all right. So now what I can do is I'm gonna make my first query. I want to know, is this R1 what kind of person is this guy? Let me go ahead and select all, Control A over this type and copy it. I'm going to go into my dev console and I'm going to just ask R1 is kind of, learn this command, this is a good one, you see right there it's auto-filling it. Name is kind of, I can just hit tab and it'll fill it in for me. And then it's a string, what kind of person is it? And it tells me it's true. This man is a VBS2 U.S. Army Rifleman OCP medium, build, IOTV 9, whatever. This is the type. This is called the type of this entity. Okay, that's very important to know. Why? Because we're about to search this entire mission for all of these guys. So now that we know he's kind of this, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all units on the screen. So let's give me a list of all units, please. All units, and here it does. This gives me an array of every single unit in my mission. All right. When you refer to units, you're referring to a person. I could do all vehicles. All right. It's going to give me a list of all my vehicles. go. So this, you have to be familiar with this wiki. If you don't know everything in this wiki, that's okay. You will get familiar with it. But for right now, let's look up all units. Click all units, and it will tell you about this command. It tells you, here's even an example of how to use it. Units equals all units. This will give you an array of all the units. It returns a list of all the units in the mission, including the simulation types, soldier and invisible, as well as any dead units, vehicles, crews, and animals. So it's important to know you're going to get a lot of stuff when you do all units. Okay, we've also got all vehicles. We've got all static vehicles you saw, and it tells you a little bit about each one of these commands. There's all vehicles X, all static vehicles, stuff like objects. If you throw a rock in there, if it's a static mesh, it's a static vehicle. It doesn't really move. It's just a thing sitting in the scene. All vehicles actually move, and here's some types of them. All right. But get very familiar with this. All vehicles X, which is give me all the vehicles except this, and you can see an example here. I want all vehicles except the things that are side west, the good guys, so you want all the bad guys. And it tells you right here, return all the op4. All right. And this is give me all the things that are not a ship. Right. And it even says it right there, all things that are not shipped. So we're working in all units right now. This one's pretty simple. All right, an array, and we'll get too far into this, arrays and stuff, but all units is an array, which is just these braces include the data, and it's comma separated. Dude 1, we know we created Dude 1, that's my player. There's R1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So let's go ahead and do our first filtering event. So we know R1 is kind of this. It's true, right? So if I say give me all of the VBS2 U.S. Army riflemen in the scenario, all units is giving me all 4 of these guys. These are the 4 guys I want, but it's giving me all this other stuff too, right? So what if I can do a filter, and here's the syntax, for each. All right, let me go ahead and show you where that is, by the way, too. Let's do for each. It's one word. Bam. This is very important to learn. Memorize this. This is one of the most important commands there is in scripting. And what it's going to do is it's going to, for every unit that you call after for each, whether it's units, whether it's vehicles, it's going to apply this code for each one of them. Okay? So we're gonna go through this now. We're gonna do for each of these things, right? For each all units, all right? So it's gonna say, okay, Dude 1, that's my first thing. What do we want to do to it? Well, nothing. There's no code in between the braces. What do we want to do to R1 next? Nothing. There's no code in the braces. So how do we do something to these units? Well, let's figure out a way to filter all of this stuff, and all we want left is R1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So we already know that R1 is kind of this. So let's not mess that up. We've already done the work, right? What we do know is the wildcard. The wildcard is the second most important thing in my mind. Ties for first for filtering. For each is exceptionally important for filtering, but underscore X, the computer is currently looking at Dude 1, and it will iterate through each one of these things. That is underscore X. And it's a VBS thing. It's not a variable. Never set anything equal to underscore X. Always set underscore X equal to something else. Let's go ahead and get the direction to these guys R1 is facing. Let's break out of this for just a second. We're going to say, let's get direction of, R1. R1 is facing north, 0 degrees. Okay, that's great. What about R2? Also facing north. What if I turn R1 this way? Let's see what his direction is now. Let me get direction R1. It changed. Now he's facing 70 degrees. Well, what if I wanted to set direction of R1 back to 0? Well, let's do that. Let's set direction R1, and the syntax for that, and you can see location, set direction, direction. This is set dir. This is a little different. So let's go into our wiki. When the time we don't know what a command is, let's go to the wiki, set dir. Set dir, if I could type, that would be great. All right, and it sets the object heading. And it's object set direction heading. That's the syntax we want to use. It's right there. So easy to use, right? So let's go back over here, and we're going to say R1. That's the object that we want to manipulate. Set direction heading 0. Watch this guy over here. As soon as I hit execute, he's going to pop. Bam, right back to 0. All right, let's set him back to 70. Bam. All right, let's go 90 because we want him facing me, right? Let's go 90. All right. So we want all 4 of these guys to do this. So now we know exactly if we wanted all 4 of these guys to do this, we could replace R1. Let's set him back to 0 first. We can replace R1 with underbar X. All right, let's go ahead and get our for each statement back up. Let's see if you remember how to do this. We put it in the braces, and we're going to do for each. And this is very helpful to, I should have copied and pasted that last command. Well, let's go ahead and rebuild this from scratch here. We want to do braces. You see the for each up there, for each, all units, right? And now let's just do underbar X. There we go. So we've just turned everything, including the player. Now the player's facing the wrong direction. We don't want the player. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn everything back to 0. Right? We just want these 4 guys right here to turn right. So we're going to filter that out. We'll make a condition statement. We don't want to do this unless something else happens. So let's start an if statement. If parentheses then code. All right, that's the format for an if then statement. Here's the condition. Instead of R1, we want this statement here that came back as true. And we want to replace R1 with underbar X because that's the guy we're looking at in our for each statement. If dude1 is kind of this, then, so we only want to do this if this statement is true. So the then is going to be set direction. All right, so now what should happen is only my line of guys here is going to turn to the right. Get this extra space out here. It doesn't matter, but I just like to keep it clean. Let me actually make it 90. All right, so now they're facing to the right. We're going to reasonably turn them 45 because their AI is wanting to face a certain direction. But that's okay. So we just made our guys do a right face. Let's have them do a left face now. 0. All right. Now I'm going to go back to my guy here. I'm going to face my element. And if I wanted to, I could command them to do a right face. Now this is cool. Like if you're familiar with triggers, let's make a trigger. And I tell you what, let's do it from the OME. Because if we make a trigger in the RTE, it's not going to save it. Remember, it said everything has to be done in the OME if you want to save your work. So let's make a trigger. F7. We'll just make a trigger here, small 10 by 10. Doesn't matter if it's a rectangle, it's just a trigger. Activation type, present. We want to activate it by radio alpha. That means we're going to command it over the radio to do this thing. And we're going to call this right face. That's the name of the trigger. This is the actual text that will display right face. All right, let's make a trigger. All right, so here's our little trigger. And what we want to do now, we've got our dev console. We've already got the command here. And a right face would be plus 90, right? 90 degrees. Face 90 degrees. So here's the other thing. I could just face them at 90 degrees, or I could say get whatever position I'm at right now and do the math to to make them face plus 90 degrees to whatever they're facing. That's really up to you as the developer how you want to do that. So I'm going to take this basically, and we're going to, anytime we say right face, they're going to turn 90 degrees to the right. All right, we're going to put that, we're going to copy it, and we're going to, on the activation line, we're going to stuff it in our trigger. Now every activation in a trigger has to have some kind of variable, so we're going to say nil equals, all right, and we're going to do this, which you will learn later. We're going to actually spawn this code. A second here. After the spawn, I don't want this to be too confusing. We're going to put a start bracket here and an end bracket all the way at the end, and we're going to close it off with a semicolon. We're going to spawn all the stuff inside this, which is basically make your own thread, and do it now. So when we trigger this, it's going to do what we told it to do just a little while ago. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. It's basically going to do what we were doing from the dev console. Remember to save, and once it saves, we're going to execute. There, it's saved. I'm going to hit H because that's just what I do. It'll launch it. I'm going to take my position in front and center of my fire team here. All right. What I'm going to do is hit 0 to open up the radio dialog. I'm going to hit 0 again, and you can see right face is number 1. I'm going to call right face, push 1, and they all face to the right. All right. So let's do that again. I'm going to hit 0, 0. You know what? It's not going to let me do it twice because my trigger is not repeatable. So let's go ahead and end the battle space. And that's all part of this is debugging. There's a lot of ending the battle space, a lot of changing things, figuring out you made a mistake, didn't consider something. Let's change this repeatably true. Okay. And now we're going to make them, we're going to save it because we made a change. And that will allow me to activate this trigger multiple times. Let's go in here and hit H to run it. I'm going to walk up to my guys. I don't have to be up close to them. I can be wherever I want, but I'm, typically you want to be front and center. And 0 to open the radio. 0 as you can see 1 through 9, and then 0 is radio. Hit 0. You can see right face is highlighted. I'm going to hit right face. I'm going to do it again. Right face. Right. And for whatever reason, they're wanting to snap back, but let's just go ahead and keep doing right faces until they get back to. Oh, you know why? Because we're only having them turn to 90 specifically. We're not taking their current direction and adding 90 to it. So, right, that's my challenge for you, is come up with this using the same scenario. All right, come up with this whole code here and modify it so that they continue to turn every time you say right face. It will get their direction. That's a hint. Stop my foot. Get direction. Let's go and look that up real quick. Get dir. All right. What does get direction do? It returns the heading the object is facing. All right, and it'll give you it in degrees. All right. And then you can set direction. So get direction, then do something to that number, and then set the direction to whatever you did it to. The other thing you can do is, as a homework assignment, is have them face to the left. Make a left face. Maybe make another trigger and have them face to the left. So this is basic filtering. You can take what you learned here and apply it to just about anything. If you wanted to filter by the type of vehicle, let's see what a Humvee's type is. It's down here. You click it, and you look down here. This is the type. Go to Dev Console, and we could change this to I want all my Humvees to face to the right. Let's try that. That's going to look kind of weird, but let's do it. All right. I guarantee this is not going to do anything. All right, because Humvees are not what? They're not units. They're vehicles. So let's just modify this script to turn our vehicles to the right. We want all vehicles this time. All vehicles. All right, now my Humvees and just the Humvees should turn to the right. Well, if I actually set it to 90. All right. So I just filtered for all of the vehicles that are kind of a Humvee, and I'm turning the direction 90 or 0. Okay. And that is how you filter things. What if I wanted to do Hemet? That's your homework. All right. Filter a Hemet and get it to turn. All right. Once you're familiar with how to filter, the sky's the limit. Then it's just a matter of getting familiar with the wiki and learning the commands you want to execute and filtering for the units you want to affect and having them execute that code. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.